What's up, guys? Thank you for joining us. We're on another episode of the Stache, and I got a buddy here, PJ. He's with me. We're going to go a little bit different today. We're going to talk more about the real estate world. Obviously, I am a real estate agent, and when I want to focus a little bit on what we do and kind of talk about how we can be better for you guys in this industry. So PJ here, he's kind of hanging out with me. I appreciate you being here today, brother.
My pleasure, bro.
If you want to start talking a little bit about what you do and kind of what your title is.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, pleasure to be on the show. My name is PJ Crescenzo. My primary focus right now is I run a residential retail branch with Element Mortgage.
Yeah.
Focused in Florida, South Carolina, Georgia. Our bread and butter is creative financing. Huge win for the team. Actually just closed an investment property, $1.5 million, sold bank statement loan today. Guy made $400,000, paid $0 in taxes, and the only difference in the interest rate from conventional financing to bank statement was $500.
Nice.
So creative financing, our bread and butter, and then I also run a small boutique commercial loan brokerage with a partner where we advise clients on commercial financing as well.
Okay, very cool. Which one was first, and how long have you been with both, commercial and residential?
Yeah, so originally got my degree in commercial, so that's what got me into the real estate business.
Yeah.
Graduated College of Charleston. Right when I was getting ready to graduate, something called the pandemic happened, and I got a job part-time working with my dad, who's a top producer in the residential lending space.
Okay.
I thought I was taking a part-time job, and rates dropped to 3%, and I got sucked into the beautiful vortex of real estate and property selling in 20 minutes.
Yeah.
So started working with him, went through operations roles, started as a processing assistant, processor, everything from insurance orders to appraisals. Every aspect of the business we did together.
Yeah.
And that's kind of been the bread and butter. So for 4 years, I worked with my father, turned into a full partnership, exited in fall of 23, which inspired my move to Florida. Commercial brokerage is just something we started on the side just to be able to differentiate when a client says, hey, I have a need for a commercial request.
Yeah.
It's a way to say, hey, I can help you get connected with the right place for this. So
yeah.
Residential was first. Residential is still the primary. Commercial is something we just started on the side within the last 3 to 4 months.
Okay.
And I've been in the business full-time 5 years.
Okay. So would you consider your full-time mark starting when you did the residential once the pandemic hit? Or do you feel like once you graduated school and started in the commercial side before the pandemic, is that kind of where you feel like your clock starts?
It's a great question. I think my ability to identify what I was actually doing started when the pandemic hit, because it was the first time I was just fully doing it in a professional capacity.
Yeah.
But I would say prior to me getting into residential lending, I spent 18 months in commercial property management while I finished school.
Yeah.
So I think the clock started there because it was the first time I started reviewing contracts, looking at lease agreements, looking at appraisals, and understanding how all the pieces fit.
Yeah.
But 2020 was really when the clock started, and I said, okay, I want to do this and build a career.
That's crazy because 2020 is kind of where like the clock stopped for a lot of people. Felt like the world just completely hit pause.
Yep.
And it's funny because we bought our house in 2020. Me and my wife bought it in September of 2020, like right before everything started to revert back upwards and rates started to go back up and like the market started to slow down. So we got very blessed with a rate that we'll probably never give up.
Yep.
We may rent the place out, but selling our house just wouldn't make any sense right
like
now.
The firstborn child, just hang on to it and be proud of it.
No reason. Plus, we live in Oviedo, and like the neighborhood itself is just so nice and it's so quiet. And,
That's awesome.
And so we love it. But okay, so 5 years since the pandemic, you'd feel like real estate is kind of where your full time is. You said the side business is the commercial side that you do with a buddy of yours?
Yeah, so a buddy of mine, so somebody comes in with a commercial project. I just saw an opportunity in the marketplace where commercial financing is a lot more complex.
Yeah.
So it's, hey, if my bank said that they can't get a loan approved and I want to go buy an apartment complex, what do I do? It's kind of an opportunity to connect with them, say, hey, let me review the deal, let me put it together, I'll help you with the package, and then get them connected with the right source.
Yeah.
So the difference is on residential, so we're a bank and a broker. So the parent company is American Pacific Mortgage.
Okay.
Top 10 bank in the country. You come to us, we're actually funding the loan.
Yeah.
So we know where the money's coming from.
Yeah.
Commercial, it might be, hey, I want to go get an equipment loan. Or, hey, I want to go buy an industrial building, which was a project I worked on in Alabama. Where do I go? It's more just connecting them to the right place.
So you made a comment just now that's specific to the lender that you work with is that you fund the loan.
Yep.
And I don't think a lot of people, when they're new to the industry in general, whether they're buying or selling, or they're just fresh in real estate at all, they don't realize that mortgage brokers aren't a bank in and of itself.
Great point.
And it's very uncommon. Yep. And so like a broker that we work with pretty closely works with UWM.
Yep.
And so it's funny, there's two different sides of that. I think not everybody realizes that not all mortgage brokers operate as a bank. That's fairly uncommon.
Yep.
Whereas, if you're looking at this, the bank side and the mortgage broker side, the bank gets the opportunity to provide products that only the bank can provide. So that's kind of what's special about that.
Yep.
Whereas a mortgage broker has access to tons of other product that banks may not have access to. And so it's interesting that you made that point because that's that's a whole other level of comfort that I think some people might have if they were to be able to utilize you
Yep,
in the
absolutely.
future, is you know where the money's coming from.
Well, and exactly. So anytime somebody's looking at real estate, right, there's two parts. There's, hey, I like this property and I want it. And now it's how do I get it?
Yeah.
And that's how we create partnerships between producers and mortgage lenders and attorneys and title agents. It's all these people working together of how can we help this client accomplish the goal? So when it comes to mortgage lending, at the end of the day, it's where's the money coming from?
Yeah.
Right? If you're not buying the property cash, you're going to get debt. So the difference between the bank and the broker is the broker says, hey, I have a network of providers and funding sources that I can go to help you get this money.
Yeah.
So for your example with the broker, he knows he's sending it to United Wholesale, massive wholesale lender. They have a ton of money doing a ton of volume, right? The cool thing about what we can do is we have both options. So I could say, hey, our bank, top 10 in the country, we're going to push 90% of our business there. But if we have something for some reason where it's not a fit, we also have a network established with partners where we can fund a condo tower. Maybe there's a non-warrantable condo because there's all short-term rentals in the complex.
Yeah.
And no bank's going to do that loan. We say, hey, we have somebody for this.
Yeah.
Or like the one today, it's a bank statement loan. It's not going to fit for traditional financing, but we have a partner for this.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so which one do you enjoy more?
Bank or broker?
Residential or commercial?
That's a great question. I think right now I love loans. Like I think my true answer.
Just in general.
I think my true answer is that it took me a while to do this and a lot of journaling and being super intentional about what I'm doing professionally. But I love the business of being able to connect somebody with where they're trying to go.
Yeah.
So I love real estate and I love helping to execute projects, and I just love loans.
That's fair, man.
Yeah.
Have you always had a love for loans? I mean, you went to school for.
Yeah. I think I don't. You know, it's a good point. I don't know if anybody truly, when they put their head on the pillow at night, loves what they do. But you can fall in love with what the vehicle allows you to do. So it's not I love loans, but when I look at what options are available, right? We can go through the industries: construction, hospitality, financial services, all of these big industries that somebody could get into professionally. And I look at the lending business as, hey, this allows me to work with people. It allows me to problem solve.
Yeah.
There's no ceiling on what I can accomplish professionally. It allows me to give back. It allows me to get better.
Yeah.
So all of those things, given the fact that there's already a track record and I've poured a lot of time into it, when I look at the next 10 to 20 years, there's a foundation already established here. I want to stay in this lane and become the best I can at what I'm doing.
Yeah. No, that's fair. I think you made a good point too, that like who necessarily loves what they do. It's fairly uncommon.
Yep.
I think in the end of the day, you got to figure out if you love what that gives you access to do.
Yes.
And so like we were talking earlier before we got this thing started, was this gave me an access to talk more, be more present with my wife, with my future family, be more present in the house. And even if there's more uncertainty than ever, it gives me a lot more control over like how present I'm going to be in my family's life going forward.
Well, and that the ability to do what you just said is what makes the vehicle attractive, right? So it's this actual pain point. Say, just use this as an example, dealing with a difficult customer.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what industry you're in, that type of scenario is going to unfold.
Yeah.
But if the industry isn't taking you where you want to go, say, for example, you're a bartender, right? Say you're a bartender, you're a real estate agent, you're a mortgage lender.
Yeah.
Those three jobs are going to deal with difficult people. But if the bartender has a cap on how far you can go professionally and there's something you want to accomplish beyond that, then the interaction with that customer is going to be that much more painful.
Yeah.
Whereas when we have difficult interactions, we said, hey, you're able to be a present father and a husband.
Yeah.
So your motivation to deal with that difficult customer
Very different.
is going to be that much greater.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I had to figure out, how to fall in love with all of the difficult things about what I do.
Yeah.
Because I realized, yes, there's challenges, but it's worth it. And it's really worth it because I was able to identify this is going to take me to where I want to be.
I think one of the things too that I like is I had a conversation with somebody about this a while ago in terms of why I went from being in the restaurant industry to going to real estate, because I mean you're trading one headache for another. You know, there is no perfect career field.
Yep.
But I think the headaches in the career that I had prior to this was that's all it was. It stopped it being a headache. It didn't necessarily progress me. It didn't take me anywhere. It didn't necessarily always teach me something. It wasn't necessarily gratifying once the problem was solved.
Yep.
Whereas headaches in the industry and what I'm doing today are just making me better. They're just teaching me things. It's an educational point where I'm I'm dealing with how to handle maybe a difficult listing agent, or how to have a conversation with somebody about a problem that I haven't had to face before, or how to address a financing issue. But all the headaches do are making me better for the future so that I can be better for the next person.
That's so true. And you think about headache, it's almost like muscle tears, but for bulking, because every pain point you experience now, you're going to be able to use that experience to perform that much better the next opportunity.
Yeah, for sure. Next question was kind of where you are currently. Obviously, we're in Winter Park.
Yep.
We're in Orlando. Where do you live in Orlando? Kind of talk about your current real estate and where you are in life. Like, do you guys own?
Yeah, we own a house.
You own, how long have you been there?
4 months. So I'll give you a quick story on home ownership, which is a great story for anybody who wants to buy a property. How we got to Orlando and our best. So first property we bought was at the end of 2020.
Yeah.
It was a 2% interest rate.
Yeah.
Property came on the market. I knew the listing agent. List prices was in Charleston, South Carolina.
Okay.
It was $350. It was a modular home, 3-bed, 2-bath, and nothing's been updated since 1990, other than a few small areas.
Yeah.
So we saw an opportunity. Hey, this property's in a great location. We want to add some value. So we bought it for $350 in 2020. 18 months later, we sold it for $560.
Yeah.
We put about $90 into it, and we cleared $110,000 in profit on that, and paid $0 in capital gains. That was our first purchase. Yeah. Second purchase, we thought we found our forever home in Somerville, South Carolina. It was about 40 forever home.
While we're talking in Orlando.
Yeah, while we're talking in Orlando. We thought we found our forever home that we lived in for 8 months.
Good Lord.
This one we bought at the top end of the market. It was like top of the budget, perfect house. We bought it for $680.
Yeah.
Lived there 8 months, and then really the big theme of the story was when we moved to Orlando. I was down here. I was visiting a buddy. I saw a house in downtown Winter Garden. Literally went to Plant Street Market, went on Zillow, saw a house near me, clicked it, threw on Facebook. Who knows a realtor in Orlando? Yeah. Got a number. Said, hey, will you make an offer on this? Bam, bam, bam. 3 weeks closing. Offer accepted. And next thing I know, now I have over $1 million in mortgages. For a new.
You guys kept the forever home.
Kept the forever home until we sold it last month.
There you go. Nice.
So now there's a clean slate, fresh foundation in Orlando, and we live downtown Winter Garden.
Did you guys at least get enough positive equity out of the house?
So, bro, by the grace of God, we got all of our money back. Okay. On a property we bought at the top end of our budget. It was the most expensive property in the zip code we lived in. So there was a lot of lessons learned on all 3 properties I bought. The first one I bought was a value add, and I got to see the beauty of forced appreciation. Yeah. Hey, you can buy an asset, change the light fixtures, change the paint, put up a fence, fix the landscaping, do all these things that I didn't need really any mechanical knowledge for. Sure. And boom, I can flip that asset. Yeah. The second one was I bought at the top end of my budget. I bought the most expensive property in the neighborhood, and then I had all this pressure and anxiety if I was going to be able to sell it, which we did. Yeah. And then the third one is now kind of this happy medium where this was the first house in downtown Winter Garden I bought for location. True proximity where we could take a golf cart downtown. Yeah. And there's other young families in the neighborhood. I didn't think about that in my first 2 purchases. So each one.
You probably didn't need to.
No, I didn't need to. But now I have a 1-year-old. So, so that's the other thing too. Things evolve. So those were my 3 purchases. Love where we live now. I think I finally have the place where I'm like, okay, this is a 5-year house. We'll see. And then we can pivot because we're onward and upward. We're always looking for moves.
You got to though. I think that's kind of it's weird because you're saying that in an industry where some people are questioning how they can even afford buying a house in general. Yep. And you're sitting here confidently saying that this is going to be a 5-year house and they'll handle it again in 5 years. And so that perspective is kind of crazy to somebody maybe listening to this thinking how have you bounced from 3 and 4 years? And
well, I'll say this to anybody listening, whether this hits 10 people, 10 million people, it's all perspective. Yeah. So your ceiling is determined by your belief system. Yeah. I believe it's a 5-year house because I truly believe, and I'll say this on the podcast, I believe this, I journal this. I can see the house in the ocean. Yeah. And I'm going to own that one day. It might be 20 years. It might be 40 years. I don't know, but I know that the goal of my final destination, I always want to be in a constant state of progress. I always want to be moving forward to where that dream destination is. So I think there's definitely some beauty in being satisfied with where you're at. Yeah. If this was the only house God ever wanted me to live in, beautiful. I love it. I'm grateful. But I'm still going to pursue what's possible 100%. With the resources I have.
100%. Yeah. And it's funny because I was having a conversation with a customer yesterday at a house, and we were talking about the first question. One of the first questions we'll get when we meet any new customers at all is how's the market, or is it a good time to buy? And generally, my answer is always kind of 2 parts. Is 1, market's irrelevant if it makes sense for you financially. If you feel like where you are in life, purchasing a home makes sense financially, you can afford it. If it's not something that's going to absolutely bury you in 3 to 6 months or forever in the future, if you see yourself progressing in school or your career, it's going to be a good time to buy if you can afford it.
Well, and think about this. Think about the margins, right? Say somebody says like, oh, I don't know if I can afford it right now. Rates are 7%, rates are 8%, rates are 4%. The actual margin of what we're talking about for actual payment on these differences.
Yeah.
So obviously 8%, 4%, huge change.
Very.
But if somebody's in the market and they're waiting until it gets to 6.75, okay, congratulations, you saved $60 on it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, what's more important? The goal that's driving you of why you wanted to do it. The most valuable thing from owning 3 houses wasn't the money in the bank. It's the experience I gained living in 3 different properties, because now I understand real estate so much more.
Yeah.
That's the value of taking action.
Yeah. No, for sure. I was looking at that when I was pricing out a property for a different customer, and they were questioning how much they could actually afford with this down payment and how much they want their mortgage to be this dollar. And so like very, very rough estimates. I'm trying to do the math for them so I can get an idea of where they can probably afford, and playing with the difference in interest rates based off of what it would have been in like 2020, 21 around the time that we purchased versus where it would have been now. I mean, the difference is hundreds and hundreds of dollars in a monthly basis. But when we're talking 7.1 to like 6.8, 6.7, you really are saving yourself like very little money, to the point where if you're comfortable just biting that bullet for like a year and then covering the closing costs to refinance the purchase and just get a lower interest rate, or there's options of refinancing and they'll bury the refinance closing cost in the actual loan. And so it's not like it's totally out of reach. And I think some people don't realize that. And the second thing that I was telling them about was, and this is less financing and more so the idea of just actually purchasing a home that makes perfect sense to a person, is that perfect house will almost never exist unless you build it from the ground up. And the idea of, it's this like iron triangle of location, price, and amenities.
Oh, that's a good one.
It might have the price that you want, and it might have the amenities, but you might not love the location. It might be a great location, and you love the price, but it might be terrible amenities. And
that's
great. It's a really difficult pill for, I think, first-time home buyers to swallow in the beginning. That perfect home will probably not exist, and that's totally okay, because you're going to find something that you're going to love at some point. As long as you're patient with it, you just got to be.
Yeah, the only thing perfect is progress.
Yeah.
Like the worst thing you can do is inaction.
Yeah.
Because there's no development of your current state.
Well, renting's just going to make it harder and harder for everybody eventually. And so I feel like if you just have the financial means to handle it in the first 6 to 12 months, if you're nervous about the interest rate, just ride it out and then refinance. Just find the means to refinance. There are people out there that can find you different opportunities to be able to refinance and hide the out-of-pocket costs.
Well, that's right, because it's cycles. The market always works in cycles.
So where do you want to see yourself in the next 5 to 10 years with where you're at currently professionally? Like, do you expect to open your own brokerage one day? Like, would you like to get in the residential side but not be where you currently are under your own name, or kind of what do you want to do?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think I love where I'm at. And it took me a while to get there, but I'm super grateful. So love the company we're with. There's people that have been there it's a 33-year-old company, so 33 years. Yeah. Original founder's still around. Love the parent company. Super hard to find. Yeah. Great culture. Love the leader. The president of the company is actually a partner in the team I'm a part of, Element Mortgage. Okay. So I would say 5 years, I want to be running a $200 million branch in the Southeast, headquartered in Florida. I want to build a team of elite producers. Yeah. I'm not interested in 30 people where only 2 people come to the office. I want 5 to 6 people who genuinely care about the community, that want to produce at a high level, and I want to help spearhead that. Yeah. So I would say if I'm running a $200 million branch with Element Mortgage, that'd be awesome and really add value. Because that's the thing about sales is, if there's no need for why you're reaching out, then that's why it feels forced, because you're not adding any value. But if we could truly add value, that'd be awesome. So I'd say $200 million branch with a great core team. And then if 20 people a year I was able to connect with commercial financing, just on the side as a way to add value and still see different projects and sharpen my skills on all things loans, that'd be awesome. Help prepare the packages and get them connected with the right funding sources. Yeah. So all in, just to continue to build the identity as a producer. And that's professional, right? There's personal goals as well, but that's the professional side.
Professionally, yeah. And like one thing I'm curious about is, like you said earlier, you don't go to sleep every night saying, man, I just love funding loans. Yep. But at some point in your life, you hit a mark where you realize this is something that you'd like to do. Talk about like your growth as an individual. You're going through high school, you're going through college. I mean, you have a degree in it. Yep. What spearheaded the whole thing?
Yeah, it's a great question. So one tip or recommendation for anybody in my personal network, any listeners, there's something called the Odyssey Plan. Okay. So this was another God moment. I'm at college at Charleston. I was about to change my major for the 4th time. Yeah. And at the time I was working at Charleston Harbor Fish House. So I'm doing a party. And I connect with one of the ladies there, and she says, "Do you go to college at Charleston?" I said, "Yes, I do." She said, "You need to go see Professor Wyman." I said, "Okay."
Okay.
One day I'm walking to class, I see a name on the door. It says Professor Wyman. I'm like, I'm going to go say hi to this guy.
Yeah.
So I walked in, I introduced myself, and I sat down and he talked, and he said, "You need to look into the Odyssey Plan." So the Odyssey Plan was something put together by a group of people at Stanford, and you essentially cast out 3 different versions of your life over a 5-year period. So version number 1 is, if I stay doing exactly what I'm doing now, how much do I like it? How confident am I that I'm going to succeed at it?
Okay.
What resources do I have to accomplish my goals with this path?
Okay.
And then you do a semi-different alternative. So maybe it was, I'm going to be in real estate or I'm going to be in insurance. And then you do a dream path. The dream path is, I'm going to go open a food truck in Cancun. It's like just something crazy. You just throw it out there because who knows, right? So I've completed 4 Odyssey plans, but was super intentional every time I filled those out with either going on a leadership retreat, going up to the mountains. Like I've done that 4 times now. I'm 26. So I've done that since college at 20.
Why do you... It sounds like initially that the Odyssey Plan is more so a matter of you kind of laying out where you would like your life to go. Yep. If you were to make 3 separate plans, like the current one, the goal, and then just the outrageous one.
Yeah.
Why have you made 4? What has changed in your life for you to feel like you got to make a new plan? Like, or is that just, like what's...
That's a great question. Yeah, so that's just the number that's existed. I don't think there's any goal of I'm going to make 4 Odyssey plans, but every time I've felt like, hey, I'm not sure if I am where I want to be.
Yeah.
Because my greatest strength is speed. Like I will execute. I'll execute quickly, and I will dominate a to-do list.
Yeah.
My greatest weakness to develop professionally is patience. Right. I bought 3 houses in less than 2 years. I have a 1-year-old. My wife's pregnant. We're 26, and I'm in Orlando, so we move fast.
Yeah.
But on the other side is like there's been so much experience that's gained in that. So the answer to your question is, every time I felt constrained with where I'm going, I said, all right, let me take a step back and evaluate where I'm at. And 3 out of the 4 times, I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be.
Yeah. That's fair, man. I mean, that's a really good way to look at it. You first explained the Odyssey Plan, and I'm thinking this is something that you want to look at 20 years from now and realize that you hit it. But when you start talking about development, eventually the place that you want to be, the place that you currently are, a year from now, even if you stay in the same career, may not be the same place, if that makes any sense at all.
No, 100%. So it's like when you say, hey, what are your goals 5-10 years from now? There is no destination.
Yeah.
Right now, I'm like, what's important to me? It's important to me that I work with a great team I can trust, which I have at Element. I love the leadership. I love the culture. I love our ability to help people. The goal that I have for where I want to take it is, it's interchangeable. If I was running a Starbucks, it would be, I want to serve 10,000 coffees. It's just combining big goals, because naturally I'm ambitious and I want to do great things in the world.
Yeah.
Like my greatest mission, I would say fear, is I get to the end of my life and I left anything on the table.
Fair,
I want to squeeze every ounce of my potential out that's possible.
Yeah.
So with my current vehicle of where I've been led, and I love the team that I'm with, it's, hey, how can I take this and take it to the highest level?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No, that's fair. I mean, that's what we were talking about earlier. Goals are like a nice, fun target, and it's a nice, shiny thing to like put on the wall that like I would love to hit this one day.
Mm-hmm.
And I think like the realization that I'm having is goals are absolutely irrelevant if you don't have the ambition and the drive to actually put something in place to accomplish that. And so that's what I've realized going like fully on my own as a business owner is I've been very good at managing my time when I was accomplishing somebody else's goal. Now that I'm managing my own time to accomplish my own goals, it's very different, because like I could easily have a goal of I want to close $10 million in real estate for the year 2024. But like that is just a number in the air until I'm actually putting something in place to accomplish how am I going to close 10 million.
So I have a question for you. Do you think it's more so finding the right goal that creates the ambition and desire to pursue it? Or is it more the development of the habits where it doesn't matter what you're pursuing, you're just the type of person that's going to get it done?
Yeah, I feel like it's probably the second one, because I could name a million goals that I'd like. I'd love to pay my house off. I'd love to have 3 kids. I'd love to be able to just control when we go on vacations, because I don't have to worry about making sure that everything's going to be handled this month or next month. You know, like there's so many things in my personal life that I'd love, but I'd also love to make like personal developments. And I think in the end of the day, and a book that I loved reading about this, which is similar, was Atomic Habits, if you've never read it.
I love that book.
Which is getting 1% better every day.
Yep.
what kind of processes can I put in place to be able to accomplish getting 1% better every day?
So
What
good.
am I doing if I were to do some self-reflection? If I were to start looking inward at what I'm currently doing in my day-to-day professionally, am I doing anything that's actually going to accomplish making me $10 million in sales for the year 24? And what do I have to change?
And the ability to truly be committed to 1% is the outlier.
Yeah.
I mean, that's where you can go to sleep with peace at night. It's like, hey, I didn't love maybe I don't love what I'm doing, to go back to that concept.
Yeah.
But I love getting 1% better. And this industry allows us to clearly document, did I do something today that moved me forward? Because it's new relationships, it's new markets, it's new products, it's new verbiage.
Yeah.
And that's what's really cool.
I think what's tricky is like defining what 1% looks like, because me personally, I am very much so, when I have an idea of what I want to accomplish, it's not so much a goal, but if I have an idea that it's going to encourage that goal or push that goal to be a little bit more realistic, anything that gets in my way of stopping me from doing that immediately drives me nuts. I'm very quick to want to just like, okay, I have this idea. How fast can I get this idea accomplished? Not to a point of wanting to rush the idea, but I feel like, okay, this is going to be really impactful. And like, this is going to have a very positive effect on my business. And so and then the second anything gets in my way, it starts to drive me nuts. It's infuriating if I can't get it to happen exactly the way that it's supposed to. But I think that's the reality of my goal. That plan, whatever that concept is, may take 3 or 4 weeks of me getting 1% better every day before I can actually see it come to fruition.
Because you're also becoming the person that's capable of accomplishing what you're doing. And that's where like the roadblocks come in, because it's not, hey, this goal isn't achievable. It's, I'm not the type of person that's able to accomplish this type of goal yet. So like the only difference between me right now and me having a $200 million mortgage branch with a team of elite people is me having the capacity to develop the types of relationships that are going to create those opportunities and having the capacity to execute on the team that can then fulfill that goal. Yeah. So it's like, why don't I have that right now? Because I'm still becoming the type of person that's capable of creating that environment. And that's the pursuit. It's like, okay, even let's take $10 million of real estate sales. As an agent or a producer, you go from, okay, I'm the type of person that does $1 million to $5 million to $10 million. Now I have an assistant. Now I have 2 agents. Now I'm on vacation. Yeah. Well, that's the thing too, is I look at that number just because we're using it. If I were to go for 10 million in sales this year, do I have the systems in place to be somebody who can accomplish 10 million in sales this year? Yep. You know, like if I were to look internally again, what am I doing on a day-to-day that shows that I can physically accomplish 10 million in sales? So true. And that kind of goes back to the 1% of like, if I don't, how do I adjust that? And it's belief system. It's like, do you have the same belief system that somebody else has that's accomplishing that? Yeah. And then do you have the same physiology? Are you doing the same things every day? Yeah. I recently started listening to this speaker, Myron Golden. Okay. I'm constantly like shifting home listening to it. My lad, Tony Robbins, a huge personal development guy. I love it. But he quotes Tony Robbins, who's like the godfather of modern personal development, and says, if you want to emulate anybody in any industry, you copy their belief system, you copy their physiology, and I'm going to guess on the third because I'm drawing a blank, but you copy their habits. No. It's like you could take anybody in Orlando, anybody in Central Florida, and you say, hey, I want to produce what they produce. You take their belief system. Okay, I believe what they believe. Yeah. My environment matches their environment. My habits match their habits. Boom, the results are there. Yeah. It's a game. I think that's tricky, though, man, because there are some people that may get exactly what I want and accomplish what I want, and I don't like how they do it, you know? And, like, that's one of the industries is I think, how far are you, because you're a spiritual guy. Yeah, I'm a believer. And, you know, it's one of those things where how much do you want to sacrifice where your values and core beliefs currently are for the sake of being able to mimic the beliefs or values of the person who may be accomplishing what you want to accomplish. And I think the hurdle there personally to professionally is, do I want to sacrifice my beliefs for the sake of accomplishing this goal, or is that goal even a goal that I should be shooting for in the first place? That's great intentionality on how you're approaching that. I would say it goes back to identity. So if it's becoming an idol, like if my identity, if I go to sleep at night and I say, hey, the money is more important than I'm a believer and believe in Jesus, believer in Christ, right? So if I say, hey, if the money's more important than my relationship with Christ, it's a problem. Yeah. If the money's more important than a relationship with my wife, or even today, I'll give an example. My wife and my son are not feeling well. I had an appointment. I go back to my identity. It's like, what does my faith say? That I'm a husband first, a father second. I'm not a father first and a husband second. I'm a husband first, a father second. So first I got to take care of my wife.
Yeah.
Okay, are you good? Then I'm going to take care of my son. Is he good?
Yeah.
And then I'm going to go take care of the office.
For sure.
So to go back to your point when we're trying to find mentors, I think there's a couple things. It's one, the influence they have can only be in relation to that priority when it's in list with my identity. I'm not going to listen to them on how to be spiritual. Like Grant Cardone's a great example.
Yeah.
Grant Cardone is a phenomenal sales trainer.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if our belief systems are
100%.
exactly identical, right?
Yeah.
I'm not in Scientology. I'm not like, I'm just, and I don't know anything about it. I'm just saying, I don't know if our belief systems are identical.
Yeah.
But when I get to my fourth priority and I get into the office at 8 and I'm ready to start busting out some sales calls, I'll throw on some Cardone. Yeah. But I didn't listen to him at 5 a.m. when I'm trying to get in line spiritually.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No, for sure. I think that's a really good point. And it's kind of like, not to turn it into a Grant Cardone conversation, but I think that's one of those people where you look on paper from the public's perspective is he's like the king of sales. You know?
Yes.
And he's that guy. He has this like Cardone program and so many people want to accomplish it. But in the end of the day, it's if it doesn't make sense with your absolute core values and what makes the absolute most sense for you, what is the number one most important thing for you, then reaching or idolizing how somebody, like how that individual has gotten where they've gotten, try to replicate that is not going to have any positive impact. At the end of the day, you're going to end up losing more of who you are for the sake of trying to get there. And like you said, closing $10 million in sales or running a $200 million branch or brokerage, if that ends up causing you to lose who you are as a person, like that's still a loss.
Well, who are you to gain the whole world but lose your own soul? Think about that. I think about a great name's worth more than great riches. Yeah. I think about set your eyes on things above. Yeah. It's all of these little nuggets where it's like, okay, I'm going to play this game and I want to win at the highest level. But because I feel like it's my God-given duty, because he placed this gift on me to not waste it. Yeah. But at the end of the day, I'm never going to use this gift to neglect the things he's given me. I'm not going to use it to neglect my wife, neglect my children. And it is a tough balance. It's like, because things could look great, and this is just a great conversation about things could look great on paper. You could have the cars, you could look like a great father, you could look like all these things, but you're the only one that knows at the end of the day. Yeah. Are you doing what you're supposed to be doing?
Yeah, 100%. And we're giving gifts and a belief system for the sake of being able to take that and reach the lost. And if we become lost trying to reach the lost with what we've been given, then it's an absolute loss, man.
And then you take that, and then I'll piggyback to you. But even in real estate, like that same mindset transfers. I'm going to help the lost, but I might help a lost renter. Yeah. That doesn't know the gift of home ownership. Yeah. When you operate with that belief system of like, hey, who can I help today? Yeah. Then it's really the opportunities are endless.
No, 100%. So backtracking a little bit. Yeah. Talking about the current state of the industry where we are right now. Yep. Probably the number one largest topic of today's world is this lawsuit. Yep. That you're familiar with, I'm sure. Yep. And to sum it up, if the lawsuit's not something that somebody hasn't heard of already, essentially the National Association of Realtors are in a lawsuit and saying that there has been collusion in making sure that interest or commission rates are set at a fixed number and that there is no negotiations amongst sellers. And if you're not familiar, in the past, the seller, their commission to their listing agent has been split with the buyer's agent as well to pay both parties. And the lawsuit just stated that the commissions were at a fixed rate and there was no commissions. And so it's kind of put us in the position now where we're not going to be able to talk about what the commission rates are anymore on the MLS. You know, they're not going to be able to list what those rates are. And essentially, it's putting buyers in a position where they are going to more than likely have to find ways to afford paying for an agent to have representation in this transaction. And one of the things that I'm curious about is I think the conversation right now is how every different type of industry is approaching this. You know, from a Zillow standpoint, Zillow is everywhere. And so there are states that have been operating like this forever. Yep. And it's going to go right over their head because this is not new to them. This has been how it's been forever. Yep. And from Florida's perspective, you know, there are probably people questioning, you know, is Zillow going to do anything about this? Is Zillow going to start approaching it? Are they going to list the commission rates for the listing agent? Are they going to do anything else? How are they going to handle this since they're not tied to the NAR? I'm curious because you're with such a powerhouse in brokerage. Yep. Has that conversation popped up at all about because I know personally that a lot of the times you guys probably have access to programs to offer incentives, concessions, down payment assistance, things to that degree.
Yep.
Has the conversation come up at all? Have you heard anything about your brokerage talking about how can we impact this in a positive way?
Yeah, I think there's two things. So one, the word that comes to mind is collaboration.
Mm-hmm.
So last year there was a change on compliance of the way that a loan officer and a real estate agent could receive dual compensation.
Yes.
So 2023, some big changes that took place in the industry was I could create a strategic partnership with your brokerage.
Yep.
And I could have my real estate license, I could have my mortgage license, and there's different ways to set up revenue share.
Yeah.
Where you could either get a piece of all of the loan fundings and or I could cover all of your marketing expenses, but it was approved by compliance in a couple different buckets of the ways that mortgage industry can create strategic partnerships with real estate brokerages. Yeah. So what I see from our side is the conversation about more and more, how do we create more strategic partnerships so that we're collaborating around ways to be a leader in our industry?
Yeah.
I think there's going to be, I think any major disruption, you can even take 2020, it comes down to that idea of the survival of the fittest. The people that are intentional about, I want to collaborate, I want to get better, I want to try to use this to help, I want to use this to get better, you're going to be able to navigate it.
Yeah.
Because there's a big change with Dodd-Frank with the way mortgage loan officers were compensated post-recession. And there's going to constantly be an evolution of the way things are done. I mean, we weren't around, but I'm sure Zillow, go back to an agent that's been around 40 years ago, just the access that consumers have to something that you used to be able to use as an opportunity to add value, might now see the property before you do.
Yeah.
So it's always changing, it's always evolving. But my takeaway from what we're saying is, hey, this is an opportunity where we can collaborate with strategic partnerships and attack this together to make sure we're the first that thing that comes to mind when somebody wants to buy or sell real estate in our market. Yeah.
Well, I think one of the things that's tricky is there's unfortunately not a lot of transparency in the industry to the public.
Yep.
And especially with first-time buyers, it's really unfortunate for them how, it's very rare that you're going to get a buyer who's never owned before and has all of the knowledge needed to be able to approach this in terms of what an escrow deposit is, what a down payment is, what is, like all the different timelines that you need to meet and all the contract agreements that you make and what is and isn't acceptable.
Thread.
And it's not easy for people. And so I think one of the positives coming out of this is it's going to force more transparency amongst agents to consumers.
And that list that you just ran through, I would say the greatest problem in our industry when it comes to financing, but also on buyers, because everybody's heard of the story of a rocket mortgage nightmare a week before closing. The greatest threat to the first-time home buyer is online lending.
Yeah.
Is LendingTree.com, is Bankrate. It's somebody in a call center, a consumer direct model that has no accountability, no relationships with the buyer's agents or listing agents in the transaction. So if something goes wrong on financing, they can disappear.
Yeah.
The greatest opportunity to help a first-time home buyer is to have somebody with the knowledge that can help simplify these things they're saying for the first time.
Yeah.
That's the way people get taken advantage of, is they're with somebody that doesn't have the knowledge and they're not going to say that.
Yeah.
So they just kind of like slide through the transaction.
Yeah. Well, it's also good to have one of my favorite parts about being, in my opinion, a representative of anybody, whether they're buying or selling real estate, is that I have trusted partners that have the knowledge to answer the questions you may not even realize exist.
Yep.
And so one of the things that I've been very happy with is the fact that, and we just had this conversation maybe a week and a half ago.
Yep.
That I had a buyer that was on a timeline.
Yep.
And they needed a specific, or they at least wanted to pursue a specific type of loan because it met their values professionally.
Yep.
And literally in maybe 2 hours, 3 hours, depending, I can't remember how the day went, but you had multiple products.
Yep.
Some gave money back to the buyer.
Yep.
And it's stuff like that is why being able to have a representative or an agent be there for them who has people in the profession that we trust genuinely.
Yep.
Not for the sake of, hey, if you work with me, you have to use PJ, right? But, hey, I have somebody who I trust wholeheartedly that I know can definitely at least answer your questions and give you peace of mind, and you don't have to use them.
Yep.
Get multiple perspectives, but being able to give them the answers to those questions should be, at least, very comforting for a buyer or a seller.
100%. And trust was the most important word, but also the best word in that exchange, because trust is the bridge between the two of us.
Yeah.
When you tell a client, hey, you should call PJ or you should call Joe because I trust him, now that's really the script on how to make a great industry vendor referral.
Yeah.
use PJ or call this number.
Yeah.
Because I've worked with hundreds of agents, and the passing of the baton really impacts the client's experience.
Yeah.
But when all they hear, when I've heard somebody say, yeah, this is who I trust, there's no shopping, there's no, I'm going to go talk to 10 people, because what happens, the downside of that, not to continue to touch on this point, but it's all related. The biggest downside of talking to multiple people is not to get multiple opinions, because the interest rate at the end of the day is all going to be within 0.25%. The money's all coming from the same place. It's very similar. It's the feedback you're receiving on what you ought to do next.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing about our business is they could all be right. Mm-hmm. But now you have 3 different paths and 3 different ways you're supposed to move forward.
Yeah.
And now it's paralysis by analysis. Now you're like,
yeah,
I'm not buying for
now
6
you're
months.
overwhelmed.
Yeah, now you're overwhelmed.
Yeah.
So find somebody you trust and let them give their expert opinion of what somebody ought to do next.
Yeah.
And it's a positive experience for everybody.
Yeah. It's hard though, man. I think one of the things that makes it tough is I was just listening to a masterclass on AI this morning, because it is consuming the world.
Yep.
And there's no reverting from it. It is where it is, and it is moving forward. It will never stand still, and it will not get worse.
Sure.
It is only ever going to get smarter and improve. And we live in a very technology-driven world.
Yep.
And there's no avoiding it. And so I think people love the idea of simplicity nowadays, especially during the pandemic, when you started getting all these different grocery stores that would just deliver to your doorstep, and Uber Eats, Walmart will put your groceries up for you in your home now. And so the level of simplicity that exists in this world in terms of what you can access through the internet and through social media and things like that, people think going to like a Rocket Mortgage or a Lending Tree is making it easier for them. They don't even realize that in the end of the day, it is a file on a desk with a stranger that you'll never talk to again.
Yep. And it's a great point on what things can be automated and what things need to be delivered. Because if you go back, they thought AI was going to disrupt the plumbing, the carpentry, all of the industries that now we're realizing a physical person is more important than ever. These things can't be automated. It's actually the person responding in the chat room or the front desk assistant. That's where AI is coming in. And people think my mortgage should just be a straight line from my application to the closing table. And it can be if somebody behind the scenes is really going like this, then in your mind, it's a straight car. It's like when I push my son, he thinks he's driving. Yeah. He's in this little push car. He's like, oh, Daddy, I'm driving. No. Yeah. But that's what we want you to think.
Yeah. That's our goal. The whole point of this is it is very easy to do. I mean, maybe it's not easy, but you could very easily just go for sale by owner.
Yep.
You don't want somebody to represent you as an agent. You can absolutely get a lawyer to do it.
Yep.
At the end of the day, you're going to get a lawyer. You're still spending the money on a lawyer.
Yep.
They're going to write you a contract. That's going to be all they do for you, and they're not going to be in your corner to be there to answer every question, to help you through the timeline. But I think the biggest point of us existing in this realm is, like you just said, you need to feel like this is the smoothest ride you have ever been on, and let us be the one that's dodging all the bullets and stepping on all the rocks and being the one taking the brunt of it. So that it feels like a smooth transaction from start to finish.
And one of the keys to having a smoother experience, whether it's purchasing real estate or doing anything in life, is building your team. Yeah. You can look at the wealthiest people in the world. Yeah. They have an entire family office of people that are handling all the things they don't handle. So what prevents people from going to the next level is they want to be the one that's doing every task. I want to list my own house. I want to get my own mortgage. I want to shop my own rates. I want to do all of my own repairs. That's awesome. Yeah. But you just spent 5 years on one project. Yeah. That's great.
Yeah. Well, you look at any industry and, you question why anything costs money. It's because you're paying for knowledge and experience. Yes. Not necessarily paying for just the person.
Yep. That's so great.
And so, I don't know, I'm interested. It's definitely, it's not, there's one statistic that is crazy. In the year of 2023, 50% of licensed active agents closed one deal or less for the entire year.
50%?
50%. 49%.
Closed less than 2 units.
Yeah, one deal or less. They averaged one deal or less for the year.
Well, and then my response to that is you shouldn't even be able to call yourself an agent.
Well, that's the thing is, one, you're paying...
Like you should have a title that says part-time interest in having a hobby in real estate. Professional.
That's think about you could probably name like 1 or 2 people that got a license just for the sake of being able to sell their grandma's house or like being able to sell their aunt's house.
It's like an easy way to make 10 grand. It's easy
once
to make 15
a year,
grand.
Make some vacation money, and now it's going to be those. I think what a lot of people probably expect is those people that come in this for the sake of either A, trying to find easy money, or B, trying to do it once or twice a year just to pay for some vacation time and things like that. It's going to become too big of a headache for them to even want to continue trying to close that one transaction. And it's going to cut the amount of agents a lot.
That's a great thread on what is the liability of distracted focus.
Yeah.
So I'll even say this, like when I even think about residential and commercial and trying to do both, it's like residential has to be the primary focus, and this has to be where 70 or 80% of my time's going, because I have a duty and a responsibility to be the best for the clients that I'm serving and for the business I'm investing in.
Yeah.
I can't overextend my capacity or my knowledge into a lane where I'm going to say, oh, I'm running 2 nationwide brokerages, because operations creates the opportunity. If you're not able to execute, now it's a liability.
Yeah.
And the most important thing to me, it's actually a liability if a real estate agent gets my number, but they have no idea what they're doing.
Yeah.
And they just start sending clients my way with no clear chain of communication. It's a liability, because I'm going to be responsible for taking this person where they want to go. So it's like, that's where, whether you're a real estate agent or you're an attorney, you have to create partnerships with people who are equally aligned, because you're a representation of each other.
Yeah. Well, what you just said there, it makes it a liability for you. It's also, you got to know what you're doing before you're even trying to open that communication.
Oh, 100%.
You know, I'm not like, if it's somebody I don't know, if somebody I've never met, if I have no knowledge of the situation other than what I just said to you, all I'm doing is overloading your plate with something that could have been probably completely avoided at the end of the day. If it's somebody that isn't serious, if it's somebody that doesn't actually want to purchase, or they just had a really good time looking at the house and now they're curious and they're interested, we're opening the door to put more work on the plate of somebody who could much rather, like, you know, it could overload you to the point of you not being able to put the amount of time into what you need to put into, because you were given this extra task that probably was unnecessary in the first place.
And it's so tough to be able to identify, even on the real estate side, you're going and showing somebody property. And this goes back to our point previously about becoming the type of person that can execute at the level you need to.
Yeah.
You're not going to know whether that somebody's interested in or not until you've seen 10 people that are interested and 10 people that aren't interested.
Yeah.
You have to go through those reps. So one of the things I'm most grateful for is this mentorship with my father and closing, seeing all of these transactions close, 1,500 loans in 4 years, over 10,000 applications. But that gave me the ability to come down to Florida and be able to identify, this is a buyer, this is the advice they need, this is how to structure the deal. This person's interested, this person's not buying for 10 years. Just because I know the way that they're speaking and what they're saying, they actually never want to buy a house.
It's so funny you said that.
So it's like you have to get that experience in the reps, do what you're best at, but then be able to act on the prior knowledge.
Yeah. No, it's true, because that's one of the things. It's like, at the end of the day, the reason that I decided to go full-time in this is because originally it was a path for me to be able to focus more on being able to be present in my house, not only for my wife, but eventually our future kids. Which is beautiful.
Cheers to that. Cheers to being where your feet are.
And I'm very excited for that, but I think it got to the point where we talked about earlier, having the systems in place to be able to accomplish the work that you want to accomplish and being able to actually hit those goals. I got to a point where I couldn't physically do both, even if I wanted to, because I was. And I was trying to make sure that I was able to still provide until this was something that provided enough that I didn't need the other income anymore. And I just got to a point where even if it was scary, I couldn't actively work on the processes that I'd put in place with the amount of time that I didn't have still working a second job.
What was the final decision that allowed you and or inspired you to take the leap?
I think one, I tell the story constantly. I've already told it on this podcast once, but I had a good friend of mine that lost everything because he couldn't turn work off. And he got home one day and everything that was important to him was gone. And he was kind of forced into a choice of either switching career paths or losing his wife and his kids. And so that, was a fear of mine because it was somebody that we worked hand in hand for a while. Yep. We got into the industry at the same time. We were the same age. We both kind of set an internal record for the company that we were both proud of.
That's awesome.
And so to see somebody that I was very much so a peer to, just watch it all fall apart.
Wow.
It was very nerve-wracking for me. But two, I think I want to say it was August of last year. I had decided that I wanted to pursue getting my license when I started getting my license and the path that I took. But it was, my wife told me 2 weeks before my birthday that she was pregnant. Whoa. And a week later, I got my license. And then the following week, I had my conversation with my immediate supervisor. And I told him, look, this is the plan. There's no idea of me walking out tomorrow. It could be in 3 months, it could be in 9 months, but understand that once me and my wife feel like we're in a position to trust walking away from this completely, I will give you at least 3 to 4 weeks. And so, I mean, at the end of the day, they got like a 8-month heads up, and I did everything I could for the company that I spent 10 years at. But
it's a long time.
I am very grateful for the opportunities it gave me, because if it hadn't been for this job, I would have never been in Orlando, would have never met my wife,
Amen.
wouldn't currently be where I am now. So obviously things happen for a reason.
Yep.
And I trust that a plan is laid out as long as I trust to follow said plan.
Yep.
But once I realized that the opportunity for me to take advantage of the skills that I had built presented itself in a way that allowed me to still work, because this is 24/7 in the end of the day. Like, this is still a Monday through Sunday.
It's definitely
business.
7.
Yeah.
It's definitely 7. It might be 10-7, 18-7, 6-7, but it's 7.
That's the beauty that I found over time is I had to get out of this mindset that if I am not constantly doing something productive, I'm not being productive.
And what is productive? That's
for me, that's what I have. Yeah,
that's the question, right? That's like the Cal Newport, the deep work of like what.
Back to, is productive getting 10% better, or is productive getting 1% better? You know, and that's kind of, for me, I need to stop. I've had to learn how to get away from the idea of thinking getting 10% better is the only way to be productive. And that's just been difficult.
Well, and then it goes back to the identity, right? It's like, hey, I think one of the goals that I have, and this is from a great group that I'm connected with here locally in Orlando, Bulletproof Humans, is the grading system. It's like, I never want to have a C in any area of my life.
Yeah.
I'm okay with a B+ across the board. So if I'm a B+ mortgage professional, a B+ husband, a B+ father, B+ in the gym, a B+ student, B+ man of faith, if I'm a B+, I'm good.
Yeah.
But if I'm an A+ mortgage professional and an F as a husband or an F as a father, I failed.
Yeah. 100%. If you can't, I feel like personally, we're not going to be given trials or struggles that we can't handle as long as we don't try to do them on our own.
Amen.
You cannot face issues on your own, and as long as we are not trying to accomplish them on our own, then we will be okay. But if you get to a point where you start failing in God-given places in your life because you're focusing too aggressively on something else, that something else probably shouldn't be getting that much attention in the first place.
And this was one of the greatest lessons I learned first couple of years of being in the business, especially during high volume seasons of 2020 and 2021.
Yeah.
How many times did I have my wife wait an hour to spend an hour on the phone with somebody that is no longer in the business?
Yeah.
So I let key moments, anniversaries, birthdays, things that are only going to happen in select periods of time get disrupted because I prioritized somebody else's time that didn't prioritize my time, and they're not even in the business anymore.
Yeah.
It's not like affinity relationships where it's, hey, Brendan, we're closing 30 deals a year together, and this is my guy. So I'm going to drop everything to make sure I'm there for you. This is somebody that got their license last week, doesn't know how to handle the situation, and they want me to solve it at 7:30.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think it's one of those things where you got to start to balance what is taking you away from what's important. If it's also not important in that moment, if it can't absolutely wait until a more meaningful time or a time that makes more sense for it to be solved, if it can't wait, then handle it and make sure that whatever it is interrupting is okay with that. And I think that's something that my wife has slowly started to. We have gotten better about seeing eye to eye on. If it is not 911, it can wait until.
But there are true 911s.
Yes,
and the ability to identify those.
You got to answer the call. You got to answer the phone call. Something may come up, and I may have a free moment to knock something out. But if I'm in a position where my focus should be on something personal, like my wife, or I'm just home for the day, or eventually, our daughter.
Yep.
And something comes up, if it's not absolutely a 911, or if it's not absolutely an emergency, like, I've grown to understand that can wait until tomorrow. And I think that 100%. Was my biggest hiccup when I first got into this was I try so hard to work on my own clock. And this is a full-time job for me. And shopping for homes can feel like a full-time job for people who are buying or trying to sell. But they are still working full-time jobs, or maybe they have families.
Well,
or maybe
and your ability to respond
here.
Sometimes is actually better the next day. Like, I've realized that. A text comes through 8:30, there's an issue on a client.
Yeah.
So many times I've tried to be like, I'm going to prove that I'm the perfect person to address this right now.
Guy.
I'm going to type up an hour-long response, and it's going to go out before 10 o'clock at night. And that was cool for the first couple of years. And then it's like, wait, I went to bed. I journaled about it in the morning. I replied at 9:30, and it was a way better reply.
Same exact solution. Too.
Same exact solution.
Yeah.
No change in the outcome.
Yeah.
And it was a better input and a better output because I took the time.
That's been tough. That's what's been hardest is swallowing the pill that random question that you got at like 7:30. Reality is the answer probably won't change between 7:30 and like 8 a.m. the next day.
Yep.
And the solution or the outcome probably also won't change between 7:30 and 8 a.m. the next day. And it's really not big enough to get in the way. It's not something to put life on pause. Just let it ride. Get to it first thing in the morning. Like you said, you're probably going to be in a better mind space, so your answer is going to be different, or whatever solution.
My answer is going to be better.
Yeah.
So it's being able to identify, which it was layers, just like the 4 Odyssey plans. Like I've went through evolutions of just how do I respond to late night text, but it's who's the person asking, what's the time sensitivity around what they're asking, and how accurate does my response need to be.
Yeah.
If it's a question of should I buy a car before the house, no. All right, well, I don't need to think much about that. No, bad idea. Let's wait. But if it's a hey, I'm with my CPA and he's got all these questions about how I should file this business income. What do you think I should do? And my wife's cooking dinner and my son's crying and he doesn't even want me to answer in that moment. I'm like, dude, this answer I'm about to give you is going to set up the next 12 months of your tax filing. You want me in a place where I have the capacity to give that 100% attention.
Also, too, this is something that like 2 or 3 months ago, we were having a conversation about this in the mentorship that we're in is if that person can't respect that you're with your family and that answer can wait till tomorrow morning, do you want to work with that person in the first place? Is that somebody that if they have put themselves in a personal pedestal that they are more important than your family and your time with your family, they're probably not somebody who is going to respect your time throughout the entire deal working with them. Maybe that's worth letting go.
And the reason it's worth letting go is sometimes people say, but this transaction is going to pay me X amount, right? And I can't afford to lose it. But how much is you being in a bad mood, working with this person for 3 months, going to cost you on future 100%. Sales opportunities? 100%. It's not about the one transaction. Somebody's like, but I'm going to make $15,000 on this deal.
Yeah.
But you might cost yourself $50,000 by losing 3 leads and 3 sales because this person is wasting all your time.
Yeah, the bills will get paid. The money will produce itself. But you cannot make up the damage that you have inflicted by causing those headaches. So, for sure.
You only help people that want to be helped.
Yeah. So what's one thing that you feel like in your position doing what you've done, what's advice that you feel like you could give to homeowners in general that you feel like maybe you wish was more common knowledge?
I would say something that has nothing to do with purchasing a house, and I can answer in that bucket, but my number one advice to homeowners would be believe in yourself. Because the thing that I see people doing is getting caught up where they don't think it's possible. They don't think they're ready for home ownership. Yeah. They think they need more time. And it's like, who told you that? Your mother-in-law, your sister said you need to wait another year.
It's not a good time.
It's not a good time.
Market.
And I've talked to people on both ends of the spectrum. So I've seen somebody with 14 cents in the bank account. Every card's maxed. And they're like, man, I'm trying to buy this $1 million house. I'm like, bro, we're way out of position here.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you believing in yourself. But at least that guy is in the game. Yeah. I've also seen clients with $200,000 in the bank and 800 credit score. Their DTI is like a 6/8.
Yeah.
They can make the payment 30 times a month. And he's like, man, I just don't know if I'm ready.
Yeah.
So my advice on believing in yourself is for all of the people that could do it, your life, and this is a conversation I have all the time. I was just talking with somebody, VA, veteran. He's like, I don't know if I should rent for 12 months. I should buy 100% disabled, reduce tax liability. I'm like, bro, so you buy this house, right? And you're like, you're not sure if you want to stay in the area, but you know you're going to be there at least 2 years. Okay, this asset, buy it for $300, you're going to sell it for $375. You're buying it with nothing out of pocket. Yeah. You're going to win on this deal $40,000 to $50,000 to your net worth, even after fees. So it goes back to believe in yourself and play the game. You got to get in the game to play the game. Yeah. There's so many people on the sidelines. There's so many people watching. Even if I lost money on my last sale, what I learned about living in the perfect house in a bad location for my family, great location for others, but was worth $2 million to now know, just because I saw it on HGTV, we actually don't want to live out in the country. I thought we wanted to live out in the country. I thought I wanted a chicken coop because it looked really cool on an Instagram reel. I'm like, babe, we're going to get chickens. We're going to be 45 minutes from town. And then I'm like, the Uber cost how much? We're how far from downtown? The piece of pie. So that value of having that experience is so much more than the money exchange on the transaction. Yeah. So that's my advice to homeowners. You just get in the game. Go buy something.
That's fair though, man. I mean, that really is true. It doesn't have to, your first like you said, you made a really good point that what looks like a perfect home now, you may be in that perfect home, it's never going to exist. It is never going to be a point where I'm currently working with customers who have bought 3 perfect homes. And every time they end up wanting the next perfect home because it is no longer a perfect home.
Well,
and
perfect's an idea.
Yeah.
It's perfect for right now.
Yeah.
Like, our first house was perfect before my wife got pregnant.
Yeah.
And now, when our in-laws stay, the bedrooms are right next to each other.
Yeah.
And we can hear through the walls. All right, it's no longer perfect.
Yeah.
It was perfect for about 30 days.
It's a situational perfection. I mean,
Yes.
it's one of those
situational
things where, like,
perfection. That's a bomb.
It makes such good sense for you in the moment, but circumstances are going to change. Life's going to happen. And, like, the situation that we're in now, we're having our first kid. It makes sense. But anything after that,
Congrats.
we're going to have to upsize. We're going to have to find a bigger space. And perfect home is never a perfect home forever. And even if you build it.
And that's where it goes back to that playing the game where it's like, okay, I have this vision of this house on the ocean, right? This house with a home office and a balcony.
Yeah.
Because I'm future casting what is going to be the perfect house when everything else is where I aspire for it to be.
Yeah.
So when there's 4 kids and we need a homeschool person to come and have a classroom in the house,
Yeah.
and my son's training basketball in the backyard. If this was the situation that God gave me, where would I want to be? Okay, I'm going to pursue that.
Yeah.
And maybe none of those other things happen, so where I'm at now stays perfectly, but I'm going to think beyond where I'm at now and try to create an environment that's going to be productive for where we're at.
No, 100%, man. It's a huge perception thing. It's a matter of just believing that it is accomplished and you can get there, and it's just a matter of making sure that, like we said before, a goal is just a number on a piece of paper, and it's a matter of just having the routines and the systems in place to actually get those. Do your systems look like your goals sound?
Yes.
And so I appreciate it, man. It's been a pleasure talking to you, brother.
Awesome,
it's good
bro.
to have you here. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you guys again.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to today's episode. Your support means the world to me. If you have any first responders that you would like to spotlight, let's make it happen. If you would like to buy or sell in our community, or if you ever have any questions about the real estate market, feel free to reach out. As always, take care, guys. We'll see you next time. Nailed it.